This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Happy New Year! Woohoo! It's Rebecca and Tara, and today we will be talking about our 2022 wrap-up and our 2023 goals. And, we have done a solid year of podcasting together.
Yeah. I thought of that, I think yesterday. I was like, wait, it's been a year.
It's been a whole year. I can't even believe it.
I know.
Yeah. So we are going to start. I'm going to have you start and tell us what your top 3 books were for 2022.
Okay. This was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be difficult, but then when I started going through and writing up my list of potential books, and I had to cross some off by going, it was difficult, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'm going to go in chronologically. My first book is nonfiction, and it is On Account of Darkness by Ian Kennedy.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Good
choice. I thought you would agree.
Yep. I almost picked that one.
I was afraid you would. I'm like, do I pick it or not? I'm like, Rebecca could easily pick this one. So, but I went with it anyways. We did an interview with the author, Ian Kennedy. So I'm not going to get into it. But it's episode 93. And it's an amazing interview. He was wonderful to speak to. It's a beautiful book. I learned things that I did not know about our province here in Ontario and the country as a whole. But this was specifically in Ontario. But I think it relates to sports and racism in North America as a whole.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So my second one is The Spoon Stealer by Lesley Crewe.
Okay, can I just say,
Yes.
when I was going through I was looking at some of your titles, and then I thought, I still haven't gotten that one yet. So, okay.
I was wondering that. And I was writing it down. I'm like, I don't know if Rebecca's read this and then didn't like it, so hasn't mentioned it to me.
Nope. I just haven't. I have to buy it because I can't get it here in Michigan, believe it or not.
Yeah. No, actually, that is true. I don't think her books aren't easy to get, even up here, even though she's quite prolific. I think because she's an East Coast writer, makes them a little more difficult sometimes to get.
Okay.
But anyway, so this one was published in 2020 and was long listed for this Canada Reads this year for 2022, which is how I was introduced to the author because I had not heard of her beforehand. And I loved this book so much.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
That's
so
so
I'll
cool.
give a little snippet because I'm not sure. I feel like I haven't spoken about it, but maybe I did.
I don't think you did.
Okay. I'll give a little snippet. It's about Emmeline, who is, she's an elderly lady. I cannot tell you her age. And she lives in England with her dog, Vera. And in an attempt, she leads a lonely life, and she joins a memoir writing club at her local library as a way to make friends and to get outside. And in this process, she makes friends, and we hear her story, and she goes back to the time of when she was born in Nova Scotia, pre-World War I, her experience in World War I and what brought her to England in the end. And then something also happens that brings her back to Nova Scotia in her old age. And it is funny. It is sad. It's just a lovely story. I love this one. I think by page 2, I can't remember what it was that what Emmeline said, but I was just like, I am full on in for this book by page 2. Loved it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that one high on my list to get a darn copy as quickly as I can. Yeah.
Maybe I should run out and see if I can't get you a copy, actually, Rebecca, because that would have been a good one to get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I want to read the rest of her backlist. and her new book, because I think she did. She just
Oh.
published a new book this past year.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's my book 2, and then book 3 is Starling by Kirsten Cram.
Oh.
Yes, which we discussed very recently. I can't remember the episode. I know I brought it up. Let me go flip through my notes. Oh, in episode 108 in our book chat number 2, we discussed this one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have to say that if I were looking at your list of everything you read this year,
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have picked those 3. Isn't that fascinating?
That
Because,
is.
yeah, oh my gosh, that's actually
Yeah.
that's interesting. So, well, all 3 excellent choices. And I'm telling you, The Spoon Stealer is high on my list to get
Oh,
that thing read because
well,
I do think it's fabulous. I mean, it sounds fabulous.
yeah. I now want to read it again. Now that I've been talking about it again, I'm like, now I want to read it again.
Now, do you reread books? Because I hardly ever do.
I do. I am a rereader.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, wow.
Yep. Like books that really, that I become highly invested in and that make me feel good. I read those again. Like I
Yeah.
won't read if I love a book, but it's a disturbing book or dark. I don't tend to reread those.
Oh,
But books that make me like feel really good, even if they
mhm.
make me sad at some point, even more so if they make me sad at some point in the story, actually, because I do like a good cry when I'm reading a book.
Yeah.
But if I get like an overall happy feeling or like a feeling of being home, those are the books I reread.
Oh,
That
that's
sounds really
nice.
cheesy, but
No, that's really nice. Yeah.
yeah.
I always feel like there are just 100 million books I want to read
Hmm.
and I'll never get to all of them. And so I rarely reread because that's time I'm taking away from something new. So I'm
Yeah,
just, yeah, but
I get that too. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Okay. Well, my 3, you're probably, at least 2 of them you will, I think, guess quickly, but
Okay.
okay. So I have talked ad nauseum about this, and it's a whole series, but it's the Nora Watts books by
Yeah.
Sheena Kamal. I mean, because my criteria for deciding what 3 I want to talk about or say that they are my favorite of the year, it's would I recommend them to every single human being that walks this planet? And that was my criteria. So I said,
Yeah.
yes, everywhere I go, I will always tell everyone about Nora Watts. So and I'm not going to say anything more because you all have heard me talk about it so much. You're probably sick of me.
Yeah. That's a
Uh,
good criteria though for recommending, like for your being your top favorite books. Yeah.
yeah, because it's hard to really think about, okay, what is your top of the year? And even though we do this thing, it's all there were so many books that had 5 stars from me or
Hmm.
A pluses even this year that I just
Yeah.
thought, oh, for crying out loud. I've got to base it on something. So
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Now, my second book is, of course, What Strange Paradise by Omar
Hmm.
Akkad. I mean, that book will live with me forever. And that one I really, really, really want to read again. And I probably will at some point. So,
Yeah.
because it is a pretty quick read. So,
It is. And
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Stunning.
And
Yeah.
again, everybody knows that book. I'm not going to go on about it.
Yeah.
But my number 3 is one that I just read within the last couple months. So it is Diary of a Young Girl, the definitive edition by Anne Frank, and actually her
Oh.
father, who actually got the definitive edition. The contents of it were through her father. When I was a kid, most people have read the young person's version of Diary of a Young Girl because everybody I've talked to they've said that's the one they read. Well, I never read it. I don't know if in school why either it didn't come across my view or
Hmm.
we didn't read it in school or I don't know why, but I always said I never read this. So I was kind of embarrassed that I hadn't. And I thought especially I was going to read it in 2023 and then I said, with all the anti-Semitism going on around the world, I thought now would be
Hmm.
a really good time for me to read this book. And the only thing I want to say about it is, even if you've read the young person's version of it, read the definitive edition
Yeah.
because it will blow your mind. Because if you read the other one, you had no clue. She talks intimately about sex. This was the 1940s
Yeah.
and feminism. That blew my mind. And the thing I want to say about this book, having read it, and why it made my list and why I will sing its praises to people if they've not read the definitive edition. And I should say too, the definitive edition it's her original diary, but then at some point during the time they were hiding, they had heard on the radio that after the war was over, they were going to publish people's diaries or whatever. So she actually went back and edited some of her diary. And then after, they were, sent to the camps, her father survived. Then he took her diaries and he also added content. And that's why the youth version is what he edited. And that's why it's a very tame compared to her original words. Anyway, she was so articulate. And so the thing that really struck me after I read it, and for me, it was just a really emotional read because I kept saying to myself at the end of it, I said, the world lost an amazing woman. She would have, there's no doubt in my mind, she would have had an impact on the world. I really believe that because she was she was such an amazing writer at that age, from 13 to 15 or whatever it was. She was an amazing writer. And she would have had, especially reading her feminism and her political views and stuff, she would have been on the national stage in my mind. So that's what the world lost.
Yeah. I am going to be reading this book.
Yeah. Because again, most of us probably have read the child's version of it, right? Mm-hmm. Which is very tragic. But boy, let me tell you something. She was an amazing young woman to be that self-aware. And that's the other thing. She started out as this really sort of selfish, self-obsessed, young girl. And by the end, it is her personal growth and how she made peace with her parents and the people she was living in the house with. It blew my mind. It's up there in my top books I've ever read. I'm not kidding. So I loved it. Yeah. Anyway, so those are my top 3.
Yep. Great top 3.
Okay. Now we this is pretty funny. So we went back today, I think, and listened to what our 2022 goals were that we set last year. And we said, oh, did we reach them? So I'm going to let you go first. What was your 2022 goal or goals?
Okay, so I had 2. One which is an ongoing one. It's been going on for several years, and that's to read the previous year's Giller long list. So that I achieved last year. So I read the 2022 Giller, the 2021. Oh my God, I'm getting so confused. Sorry.
I know.
The 2021 Giller long list. I read that minus one, which I did not. There was one that I did not finish, but I consider that done because I attempted it and did not like it. So I put it down. Mm-hmm. And then my other one was to attack the Agatha Christie catalog. I was not highly successful at this in that I only read 4 of the Hercule Poirot books. Pardon my pronunciation, but
how many are there? Because I think 4 is pretty darn good, though.
Oh, just the Poirot books. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I got tired of writing down the list after I got through all the Poirot books. So there's probably at least 30 of those. So I'm like, I didn't even look at Miss Marple or anything else. I'm just now focusing on the Hercule books, and we'll see how that goes. Okay. Yeah. So I was, I looked at it. I've started it. Let's say that I've begun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you even said it was going to take you a few years to do it. So I mean, I think 4 is a respectable number.
It is.
To start with.
How about you, Rebecca?
I'm trying not to howl laughing because I did not even remember this goal. It's hilarious. I thought I had a different goal. It turns out I did not. So my goal for 2022 was to read classic literature from different countries. Like I said, like in the United States, if you said, what's a classic title here? I would say something like, by Mark Twain or something. And
Yeah.
I thought, I really want to read more about countries from around the world and what their classic titles are.
It's a great
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I forgot about it the day after and never made any attempt whatsoever to do it. And I would like to say, I'm going to blame it on the fact that it's retirement brain, because
Yeah.
I did retire at the end of January this year. And I'm not kidding you. It was hilarious. When I listened to the recording, I went, what the hell?
I
I
know.
have no
I
memory
did
of
the
this.
same thing with yours when you started talking. I'm like, I totally forgot about that. I'm
I
like,
know.
and she hasn't talked about it. I'm like,
Nope.
so excited to hear.
Because there was something else that we will talk about in a second
Yes.
that I thought was my goal that I set, which is
Yes.
hilarious.
And I think that's what sidetracked you, actually.
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did get hung up on that
Yeah.
because then, I went the whole spreadsheet route and the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's what we're going to call this our silent goal, because you and I
Yes.
also had a silent goal. So tell
Yes.
me how you did on your silent goal.
Okay. So our silent goal was to get through our physical TBR, like our stack of books that we have sitting on. Well, mine is on like a little bedside table in my room. So I counted at the beginning of 2022, I had 55 books in this stack, physical books.
Okay.
And my goal was to whittle that down. I think I said to you, I would love to get it down to 10. That would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I love doing this throughout the year, actually, like keeping tally of it and stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
I kept tally of how many books I read from this stack, and how many books I added into the stack, whether they be ones
Mm-hmm.
that I purchased myself or were gifted.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with 55. I read 47.
Shut
Right?
up.
I know. That's
That is
amazing.
fantastic.
Thank you, Rebecca. How many
Wow.
did I add? 47. So I'm at the exact same number.
I love it. Oh my God.
Me too. When
That's
I added it up
hilarious.
this morning, I'm like,
Oh my
my
God.
God, it's the exact same number. So I've made no progress, but it hasn't gotten any bigger. So,
The fact that you read 47 out of 55, that
yeah,
is amazing. Like, what,
thank you.
to me, you 100% met that goal. 100%
Yes,
met that goal.
thank you.
So
I
yeah.
think I did pretty good too. It just cracked me up that I actually haven't. The stack is no smaller, but
But I will say this though. If everybody did that, where they read most of what they purchased in the year and then they just bought more, I think that's great. I mean, right?
yeah,
Because you
yeah.
want to add new books to your list or whatever. And so, no, I think that, God, I'm just freaking impressed as heck, man.
Oh, well,
Seriously.
now, mind you,
Wow.
some of them that are still left in my stack are not all, like, they're still old ones from the beginning of last year.
Hmm.
So I did read a lot that were either given or that I purchased. I did read a lot of those ones this year. So
Hmm.
there's still a nice little stack of older books that I would like to tackle and get out of there by the end of 2023. So we'll see. But
Yeah. Yeah.
still,
Wow. That's, I'm really hella impressed. That's amazing. So
thank
good,
you.
good job.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So my to be read list is not as long as probably everybody out there listening to this podcast, because I don't really buy books that much. I bought more books in the last couple of years than I have probably, if you add up my whole entire life, because I go to the library. I just am a
Yeah.
librarian, I go to the library. But I read, and I don't know how many I started out with, to be honest, because my thing is I'm a mood reader, and that's why I don't like to buy books that much, because I could be really excited about it in that moment,
Hmm.
and then 6 months or a year go by, and then I'm like, "Yeah, I don't wanna read this." And
Yeah.
that's what kinda happened. There were a stack of books that I just said, I either tried starting to read it and went, "Nope," or I just went, "I'm just not interested anymore." And so my public library wildly benefited from some really great titles that I
Nice.
never read, and then I just knew I was never going to read. So,
Yeah.
I read, though, 30 books that
Nice.
had been on my list between 2019 and kind of early in 2022. So I
Yeah.
got through 30, so I was very happy.
Yep.
And I have added for 2023, I have 17 books now that I have purchased. And actually it's funny, I think I added the first one in February of 22. And so I just bought 17 over the course of, well, I actually bought a few more than that, but I already read some of them. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so I have 17 books that I will read next year, 2023. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
happy because I don't, and I sincerely, I judge no one about how many books they
Yep.
have on their TBR because that's their reading and that's cool. But for
Mhm.
me, it actually causes me to have anxiety if things are sitting on my shelf and I don't get to them because unlike a lot of people, I can't continue to keep buying books if I have things staring me in the face.
Yeah.
And that's just me personally. I can't do it. So that's why I've only so far have 17, on my
Yeah.
TBR. So
No,
yeah.
that's a great number. I would like to get down to that because I find with having I also don't like having a large number of books. And the 55 I have there I find to be a large number of unread books because I find it keeps me from reading newer books.
Hmm.
Like I'm always feel like I'm playing catch up, which is actually moving into my goal for 2023 is that when I have a lot of books, I feel like I'm continuously playing catch up with my reading and
Hmm.
not reading the newer books that I really want to as a result. So that's why I would like to keep whittling down my physical TBR.
So does that mean this is your official goal for 23? What, how many, do you just have the one goal or do you have multiple goals for 2023?
Okay, so I think it is to still whittle down. My official goal is to keep whittling down this TBR,
Hmm.
but I want to focus on reading the newer books of favorite authors that come out. So
Mm.
I often find that like a favorite author will publish a book. I'm really excited about it,
Hmm.
but I either wait to buy the book because it's not the right moment to buy the book. I know that sounds weird, but in my head, I have this little system about when I buy books. So I either end up don't not buying the book or purchasing it, and sits there waiting, and then I
Hmm.
kind of forget about it.
Hmm.
So I would like to read the newly published books of my favorite authors as they're published. Like I don't have a number that I can put to it. It's just more of a state of mind for my reading.
Because that's what I was going to ask you is whether
Yeah.
you have a list of specific authors that you would say, okay, these are the ones whose new books I'm going to read. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you
Yeah.
have specific authors in mind?
I do right now because I think I have 4 of those books sitting in my stack
Oh,
that I recently got that I would like to read.
do you offhand know what they are? Who the authors are anyway?
Yep. One is Anne Marie MacDonald's newest book, Fame, that came out a couple of months ago.
Oh yeah.
David Adams Richards had a new book come out. I know, Rebecca. I
Whoa.
know.
I didn't know that. Oh,
I didn't
okay.
know this either till like 3 weeks ago. I'm so upset with myself. It came out in October. Um, and I got that for Christmas. So I have that waiting for
Oh,
me.
nice.
There's the Newfoundland author Lisa Moore. I have her latest,
Hmm.
and I thought there was a fourth one,
Well, the
and I
Spoon
can't.
Stealer, was it the Spoon Stealer one
Yes,
author?
she has a
Okay.
new one too, but I haven't purchased it yet.
Okay.
But oh, actually, and you know what? N.K. Jemisin, who is an American author who does speculative fiction. Her newest one came out a couple of months ago, and I got that for Christmas, and I will be starting that later today. So
Oh,
those are my
nice.
4. Like I don't want to read the buzzy books right away
Yeah.
because the buzzy books I find they always disappoint me if I read them right away. That's not
Hmm.
my intention. My intention is to read the newest books of my favorite authors in a more
Hmm.
timely manner. There we go. I said that
Yeah.
very. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. All right. Recap your 2 goals. So you have 2 goals.
Yeah.
So one
So
is to whittle down go ahead.
yeah, continuing the TBR, the whittling down of the TBR. That'll be a continuous one. Agatha Christie.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's continue, yeah. The 2022 Giller long list,
Oh, you
that will
have,
be one. So I've only read 3 of the 14 so far. So that'll
yeah,
that'll happen. I think I haven't read that many because I'm not super excited about the long list this year,
yeah,
but I'm going to read them anyways because then that's how I always find new authors when that happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then also to keep an eye out for your, is that like a considered a fourth goal, and keeping out an eye on the new
Yes.
books by your, okay. So you
Yeah.
have 4 goals.
Yes, but not a lot. And like only the Giller one is like a really concrete one with numbers. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah.
but I guess they're all concrete. But yeah.
No,
Yes.
but I can see the Giller has a fixed number to it,
Yeah.
right? So as the
Yeah.
other ones are going to be a little more, fuzzy a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, the reason I'm saying that is because in a year when we are doing this again, I want you to remember you had 4
4
goals.
goals. Yes, I will. And
Unlike myself who couldn't remember. So
no, I got 4. They're there. I'm writing them down right now so that I will not be surprised on December 28th of 2023.
okay. Now
Yeah.
I have 3 goals.
Okay.
My first goal is to read wonderful books around the world. But I have a plan. Now I have a
Okay.
plan.
Okay.
Okay. I did about halfway through the year, I realized I came across this hashtag called reading the world.
Oh,
So on Instagram, if you look at the hashtag, and I'll put this in the show notes, read the world, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Reading the world. Then there isn't, that's the bigger one, I think, of the 3. And then there's
okay.
read the world. And then there's hashtag read around the world.
Okay.
And the reason I've been following them, but you know how the algorithm works. I wasn't really seeing this stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
people are reading around the world and then they're posting about these books. And so I thought, rather than to stick with like the classic titles from a country, I'm just going to look at some titles that really grab me in the moment
Mhm.
and read about these different countries. And so, as we've talked about before, I have this real bias about hot climate. And so, my goal, I mean, I'm not putting a number on it, but I will read at least one set in like, no, I mean, I'm going to read about Africa, and a lot of
Yeah.
it's hot there. So I just love to read about, northern climates.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
thing. But I am going to commit to at least read one in a hot climate. That's all. That's what I'll say. But overall, I'm going to be looking for books about
Yeah.
other countries because I need to learn a lot more about other places.
Yeah.
That's
Like a focus for you,
Yeah,
for
it's
your
definitely
reading.
going to be a
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah.
So I love my Canadian literature. I'm going to be
Yeah.
continuing to read as much as I can, but I am going to focus a little bit on other countries as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I like this one for you. Yeah.
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 Now my other 2 are kind of, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I'm not 100% sure if I've ever said this to you, but
Mm.
it was serendipitous because I was in Sarnia as I was going to Toronto a couple weeks ago to hang
Yeah.
out with some friends, and I went into my little independent bookstore in Sarnia that I love,
Yeah.
and I was at the checkout line because I only was going to buy what's the sleeping car porter? Is that what it's
Yeah.
titled?
Yeah.
Yeah. I bought that, and then I bought some other little gifts, it's a great store because they have a lot of really cool non-book things, but sometimes they're book related, but it's just a lot of fun things that they have
Yeah.
in the store. So I'm buying Christmas gifts and stuff. Well, anyway, I'm standing at the checkout line, and there's this turntable thingy, whatever it's called, and it has like classic books that are, I'm pretty sure they're not leather bound, but they feel kind of like leather bound.
Okay.
And so I just looked at it, and there was one of my goals sitting right in front of my face, so I had to buy this book,
What? What is it?
Aesop's Fables.
Oh,
When I was a child, we had a copy of it, and I know that as a child I read them, but of course, I mean, I was really young, so I don't know. But anyway, so what I decided to do is every day, I think there's only like 180, I think, in there, but so it won't take me the whole year, but every day I will read one, and then I'm going to journal about it because I want to see, in the course of my life, did I learn the lesson of the fable throughout the course of my life, or did
yeah.
I not? You know what I mean? So I thought it'd
That's
be kind of
amazing. Yep.
fun to kind of journal about it.
Yep.
I just sort of looked at the first one and I was like, son of a bitch, I did not.
You're like, what's up with this tortoise? Why is he so slow?
Yeah, exactly. Like I was thinking to myself, this might be a depressing year. I mean, a
Yeah.
depressing goal in terms I say to myself, wow, you hit this age and you've learned freaking nothing your whole life. Or I might say, I did learn that lesson and
Yeah.
I'm very thankful I learned it. But anyway, so
Yeah.
Aesop's Fables is one of them, which I thought would be a lot
Okay.
of fun. And it's a really beautiful, have to show you a screenshot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the book. It's really beautiful.
I hope you share some of these on Instagram too,
Oh,
if you feel up to it. It might be kind of fun to watch you read along. Like,
well, yeah.
think of it.
No, that's a
Yeah,
great idea. I will do that. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, and then the other one, I've been thinking about this one for a while, and I know I talked to you about it before because it turns out I'm not sure which edition I'm going to buy. But I also want to read Grimm's fairy tales because I have never read them. And I know that Disney has turned a lot of them into movies.
yes,
But my thing is, I want to read the original. Well, I can't read the
yeah,
original, it's in German, but do you know what I mean?
yes. I think we had this conversation
We did.
months ago, right? Yeah.
Oh, did we do it on the podcast
Oh,
or was
no,
it
just
just?
you and I personally. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's why I thought, when I started to look at the different editions, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know which one to buy.
yeah,
And so it's going to take me a little while to find it, but I do want to read those because I just feel like, you know, when things get Disneyfied, I can't, the original
yeah.
story is probably always better.
Oh, they're going to be
And
so dark.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
God.
So, yeah, and I thought I don't know, that just really struck me. So that's it. So it's going to be Reading the World,
Yeah,
Aesop's Fables, and Grimm's Fairy Tales.
yeah.
So,
Those are
yeah.
good.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's my
Our goals
goal.
are like completely different. That makes them more fun, actually.
Yeah, we'll be kind of watching each other's
Yeah.
progression as we go through the year. And it's funny too because the Agatha Christie books, like I said before, I think I've actually only read 10 Little Indians. So at some point, I do want to throw some in because when you talk about it, I mean, you're just so high on her
Yeah.
books and everything.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I just had read that one and never went back again. So someday I'm going to probably add some of those. And so if you have recommendations of maybe certain ones that you really loved a lot, that
Yeah.
would be cool. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds
well, anything else to wrap up our this is a wrap up of 22 and a happy new year for 23. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Oh, unless people, if they would like to share their favorite reads of 2022, please send them, like leave them in the comments on Instagram or send them in the DMs because
Yeah.
I think it would be really fun to hear what their favorites have been as well.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
also, if they have goals for 23, I'd love to
Yes.
hear what those are as well. And
Yes.
I will say that when Shauna and I were doing the podcast together, every year she would change kind of the look of the like if you click on our podcast, what it looks like. She'd always kind of change the theme every year. So I'm kind of playing around with Canva and we will have a little bit of a new look just for the podcast, little graphics and stuff. So but
Yay.
I just want to say that this year has been just the best. Sharing it
Yep.
with you, all the reading,
Yep.
all the interviews we did, adding our reader repartee and our book chats, everything has just been so much fun this
Yeah.
year.
It's been a fun experience, a fun first year of podcasting. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hope that we'll definitely have some. We've got a couple of authors coming up in the month of January and February, and of course, we know Canada Reads kicks off.
Mm-hmm.
I think the long list will be out like mid-January or
I think
something.
that's what it was last year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we are gearing up for that as well. So anyway, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year, and we hope that you'll continue to join us. And thanks so much.
Yeah. And happy reading.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.